Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode where we dive into transformative ideas, uncovering inspiring journeys, explore strategies that drive impact. I am your host, Nithin Hassan. And today we have an extraordinary guest joining us, who is Somya Sahu. Somya is a leader in strategy operations with 14 plus years of global experience. Her expertise lies in unlocking organizational potential and driving unprecedented growth by leveraging people, process, and technology. Known for turning challenges into opportunities, she has proven track record of optimizing go-to-market strategies, streamlining operations, and accelerating. Soumya coaches startups and small businesses with best practices for sustainable growth. She's also a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion and a mentor to aspiring leaders. She believes in holistic experience to everything that she puts her heart into. Today, we'll explore Soumya's journey. Get ready for an insightful and inspiring conversation with Soumya Sahu. Soumya, thanks for joining the podcast today.
Thank you, Nitin, and thanks for the invitation and for a lovely introduction. Thank you.
So, if you can share your journey and what inspired you to pursue a career in strategy, operation, and digital transformation.
Sure, Nitin. I was like one of those studio students back in those days that let's do commerce and then let's do MBA and let's make a career in finance. So that's what the progress was. I mean, come from a business background. My family is into businesses where I've always seen how the efforts are translating into either a top line generation or a bottom line controlling. So this was all very visible to me while I was growing up and coming from a business family. But when I started working for the corporates, it felt like a black hole, especially, even in the MBAs, we always learned doing such and such thing would impact the business in so and so way. But when I didn't see that happening, it made me feel a bit questioning my efforts, which is what led me to pursue a career in strategy and operations because this is that domain where everything that you do gives a direct impact on the either on the top line or on the bottom line, and you have that visibility. And I was fortunate enough that I got that kind of an organization, that kind of a role that I could excel in a career in strategy and operations.
What's the defining moment or a pivotal experience that shaped your career path?
That's an interesting question, Nitin, but I wouldn't say there was one defining moment, but there was a series of moments. Like every time I would complete my deliverables in my first job, I didn't know what was the impact it was making until, one day when I was on leave and I was working on a blue chip client and my replacement messed up something in the deliverable, and that led to actually a significant drop in that company stock because I was working in the derivative side, that all the directors got a notification. And while I was at home, and that back in those days, we didn't have laptops or mobile devices for home, and especially in the derivatives business of an investment bank, that you had to be in office to access your emails. Before even I could join the next day, I heard that, this is what happened. And that was, I could probably define as the defining moment that I knew, okay, I should definitely know the impact that my deliverables are making. So, before such a thing happens, I can not only control that, but I can also come up with better processes or better deliverables that I can excel, or the company can perform better if I know the kind of impact it makes.
That was very interesting. And also, what I was mentioned is accurately right because you need to understand the big business impact. Because a lot of us, what we do in a technical field, we are too much focused on one thing. We don't know what exactly we are trying to deliver, and that may have a cascading effect. So, what? So, that being said, how do you balance your technical expertise with strategic decision making in your role?
Interestingly, Nitin, I've had mentors who have ensured that my focus stays on the business results. So, identifying the business goals first and sticking to them. While technical expertise might be required for productivity improvements or for bringing in newer technologies to the table. But the end goal always has to be achieving the business goals. So having that sharp focus is critical. And that is how I balance my technical expertise along with the strategic insights.
Yeah, I think mentorship is the key thing here, right? Any industry, you need to have a right mentorship to succeed. As someone with an extensive experience leading teams, right? What's your approach to building a culture of collaboration and innovation?
That's a very relevant question, Nitin, and especially in today's world when the culture is evolving significantly with hybrid cultures prevalent in all industries, and also with Gen Zs coming into the picture and having a very different work style. So, number one is ensuring that there is a personal rapport that is built with all the team members, even if they are not a direct reportee. That is the number one thing that I ensure as a leader. I do the first thing in my role. And secondly, identifying the business goals to be achieved by each individual and giving them that clarity periodically and having those checkpoint conversations that needs to be given in time versus just waiting for a year-end appraisal. And third, a very important one is building that psychological trust and safety within the team. So I encourage my team members to share whatever they want to share, and no idea or no feeling is invalid or stupid. Everyone is entitled to have that. And that raises a lot of confidence in them. I will again call myself fortunate enough that I have had mentors who every conversation have instilled confidence in others. And even, people keep going through difficult times. And when I go through difficult times, just one conversation with them ends up instilling a good amount of confidence to be better than your previous self.
Do you have any particular example where you would like to share with your audience where you had the impact?
Definitely, Nitin. So one of my mentors was visiting a friend of mine who had relocated to a new geography of an organization. Given having tried her best because setting up a new geography takes time, she was doubting her abilities and just in a random conversation brought up the topic that I'm not sure why the organization moved me to this location and I haven't been able to add value here. And in a very casual conversation, my mentor just ended up saying, there's a lot of value that you bring to the table. And the company sees that value, which is why you were moved to this organization. And that's okay. Even if you fail, that's okay. But there is a lot of value that you can add even going forward. And that statement just changed the perception of that individual about their work and instilled a lot of confidence and increased their self esteem. And that was such a psychological, safe statement. And I'm sure it wouldn't be even put in their, year end appraisal or anything. It was just like a minuscule conversation in the bigger scheme of things.
Definitely, Soumya, I can echo on that. Right, having empathy is one of the key in the corporate role because there are a lot of things going on when we move from one geography to other geography, be it a family, be it a personal situation, be it a business, and having that moral support is very much important. And I truly agree with what you said. What's the one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring leaders who want to make a mark in the strategy and operations today?
Number one would be understand the bigger picture and have never lose the focus to the organizational goals. It is like in the Mahabharata, Arjun, piercing the fish eye. So it's exactly like that. The moment you lose focus from your goal, things may get haywire, but having that focused mindset is number one. And number two is having empathy. As a leader, it's critical, especially these days when everything is AI driven and people lack human connection and they want to be understood. So having that empathy, having that EQ is critical for a leader to be successful. And a leader is a leader because there are people to follow him or her. So it's critical for that leader to understand people, to have that EQ, to understand those team members.
I think rightly said, you mentioned two things here. One is the focus, other one is empathy or EQ, right? This is the first thing is very challenging in today's day and age. Focus. Focus is one of the things because we are going through a lot of things in business, and keeping that focus is very, very hard this day and age. How do you advise our aspiring leaders to be focused on the goal? Is there a particular strategy you would follow which should help our audience?
There are two ways. One is that I follow, and one is that I would love to follow, and my mentor practices. The one that I follow is having quiet times periodically for yourself where there are literally no distractions, be it from other humans or be it from another technology. So, having those quiet times, maybe even just an hour a week, when you probably call yourself in a silent retreat at your own home, that there are no other distractions or simulations to your brain. And if you can do that even for like a 5 minute during the day or especially at the bedtime, that works wonderfully well to increase concentration and focus. And at work, it's establishing some focus times. That is either, having a no meeting day fixed in the calendar, maybe weekly or monthly, or maybe having some focus time during the day scheduled in your calendar. It depends on the nature of the profile or work that you do, but it is imperative that people do keep some time just to focus on things.
Yeah. What you said is actually right. So this is what I do every day, right? Every day before bed, I put my reflection in like a document. So, and also I put my intention for the next day. And because you need to have a bigger picture of what you're doing, that's where it brings you focus, right? Because there's a lot of things you can, where you get distracted. And as you said, having a intention and reflection of what you're doing, I think keeps you focused, and that's well put, right? So thanks for that great advice. So as you said, focus and empathy are two things, but how do you, because end of the day, if you're working for a corporate, there are two things. One is a business goal and the other one is maintaining the employee satisfaction. How do you manage a balance between achieving a business goal and maintaining employee satisfaction?
It is a fine balance to tread, Nitin. And I can share a couple of examples from my friends' companies, which would make this black and white. Now, especially in these uncertain times when there are multiple layoffs, this achieving business goals and having that employee satisfaction is crucial. And would you want that employee to be back? Because sometimes in the layoffs, you're laying off some good employees as well who might be relevant in future for that organization too. So one of the organizations, again, a very large organization, laid off people, and they just called them to a vendor meeting room which is outside the main floor, and just told them that your position has been made irrelevant, and thank you for your service, and you're fired. Basically handed them a pink slip. And that was it. Within 5 minutes, they were not allowed to get inside the floor or say goodbye to their colleagues or even pick up their stuff, which was handed off to them by security. Obviously, that led to a lot of distress, and employees left in a bad taste. However, on the other instant, again, a large global organization, when they had to lay off people, the manager personally had those conversations with them along with the HR and telling them that, we are there to support you. This is your package, severance package. We have the employment coaches for future. We have recruitment agencies, and I can personally share some your referral to within my network, so you get relevant opportunities in future. And of course, we also have a mental health counselor in case you need any kind of support. And this was just such a nice move that all the companies have mental health advisors on their board now. These days, every organization has those, and the bosses, even if they have like I'm sure they would have not more than like 15 people they are laying off in one go, like at least mid manager to senior managers. They can definitely just put in one word that I would be happy to recommend you in future. And that just creates that trust and creates that how do you ensure employee satisfaction while achieving the business goals? That is just by having that empathy, having that emotional quotient, having that personal relationship is something that defines.
Definitely, Soumya. Actually, that's a great piece of advice for any leaders, right? Because it's not about the leadership, basically having empathy even after the fire. And that's what is going on in the industry, right? It's just they just use people as a labor class. But having that empathy and trying to help them even after the bad times, right? That goes a long way, all right? Because it, the connections what you build, that's what makes you a true leader in the end. Yeah, whatever you mentioned, right? That's a great piece of advice for any great leaders to follow. That being said, you also believe in an holistic experience. And you also mentioned about spiritual growth. Could you share some light on that? Like, how do you go about, because that's a very much required in this corporate day and age, right? We are so much stressed day in, day out. And spirituality is one of the things which actually calms things down. So, what do you do for your spiritual growth? And what can you advise for our audience on the spiritual growth aspect?
So I not only read some of the best of the books about business growth and spirituality, like the business lessons that can be learned from spiritual leaders, or the books like Gita. And I also follow yoga and meditation on a regular basis. And once a year, I try to register myself for a silence retreat for 3 to 5 days. And it just reboots your mind, and you feel like a baby who's just been born with fresh ideas and a new problem solving approach. So I think having a holistic experience makes a huge impact on your overall well-being, and of course the productivity, the ideas, the strategic mindset that you bring to the table. And not a very popular view with some of the people in the new generation, but I also believe that what we eat also impacts how we operate or how we think. And there is some research that's been done on that side also. So I follow eating healthy and clean to ensure I bring my best self to the table every other day. Lastly, but not the least, whenever I am at work, I am 100% at work. And whenever I am at home, I'm 100% at home. So bringing that mindfulness to your daily work is important. And that focus and your ability to uh, detach yourself from a work. If you're getting negative feedback about your work, it is about the work and not you as an individual. That is where a lot of people get confused and get dissatisfied with their work, with their team, organization, and end up leaving. But having a clear boundary, being mindful of that detachment is important for someone to succeed in life.
Very rightly put, Soumya. So basically having that boundary. But with this day and age, right, with the phones ringing everywhere, I think it's very hard to detach ourselves, right? Phone is in your hand all the time, and you get messages, office messages all the time. How do you control that? Like, do you put in a silent mode, or you don't receive your office messages after work? Yeah, at least I felt it was personally challenging for me because one message comes, then you tend to reply if it's your boss, and then one thing like the entire evening will be spoiled just by answering that. How do you advise our audience to get detached from work after your work hours?
But that's a very important and relevant question, Nitin. So, it's like being a user of technology and not a slave of technology. Technology has started to enslave people these days. For except for my phone and alarms, everything else is on silent, and I just switch off the notifications for everything. And for work, especially in Microsoft Outlook and Teams, there are quiet time scheduled.
Should follow your advice on me on this one because I got very much distracted with all the business email. Because me being a kind of a startup founder, I work 24/7 sometimes, and that's affect the mental well-being as well, and also it impacts the family. I think that's a great advice. Having a family time and also business time separate will help in overall growth and also spiritual growth. That's a great advice. I'll try to follow your advice on that one. Thank you for that.
Definitely, Nitin. And I think this I also learned from my boss, the CXO, and he has his priorities and boundaries, right? And he uses, that template. What is urgent and important, urgent but not important, important but not urgent, and neither. So that is something that I use very effectively. And as an entrepreneur, as a founder, all of us are the CEOs of our own well-being. And I believe that as entrepreneur, as a startup founder, for all of us, it's very important to have a sound mental well-being. And my boss, I can share his example that despite having these boundaries, he is the most effective because he focuses on his overall well-being. If, people are working round the clock and they believe that more is getting done, but just by being more effective and mindful and creating those boundaries, this boss is next more effective than most of the people who are working round the clock because of the kind of strategic value that he adds by having that me time.
I completely agree with you on that one because it's not about the quantity of work, it's a quality, and quality comes in when you have that clear boundary and a fresh mind. To have a fresh mind, you should have those silent retreats. You did mention about the silent retreats. So can you give me, how do you go about the silent retreats?
So, Nitin, there are a few kinds of silent retreats these days. One is I have been associated with Art of Living for a while. So, one is they have online silence retreats, which is in your home. There are online sessions right from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. You will have a lot of meditation, different kinds of powerful meditations and the yoga, and also you eat clean. Also, there are Art of Living's ashram silence retreats when you visit their ashram and follow this lifestyle. And also, there you have to do seva, which is you have to serve either the ashram's running machinery or and also clean up after yourself. Third one that I'm aware of is Vipassana, which is you go to a 10-day or a 12-day retreat, and that's a very difficult one. But a lot of people claim that it was a life-changing experience and they visit year after year. But for me, in general life, I like to follow it along with these yearly retreats. I like to follow just 1 hour by myself for at least a week, if not more. And my grandfather, who was also a freedom fighter, he used to have 2 hours of silent retreats every week, and where he would not entertain anyone or anything, and he would just be by himself. So I think going forward, that is going to be my vision, to have those on Sundays.
That's awesome, Samya. That's very great. You did mention about your grandfather, right? And also, I when I was going through a profile, also I see there's some connection with Indian Armed Forces, and you also help Indian Armed Forces transition to a corporate careers, right? How did that happen? Give me a brief idea. How do you have a connection with the Indian Armed Forces, and how did you get a thought of transitioning them to a successful corporate life?
Sure, Nitin. It's a long story, but so my grandfather was a freedom fighter, and when Kargil War happened, I was very young and wanted to serve my nation. Now, long story short, I land up in a corporate career, and uh, I have a personal brand in my family that people reach out to me for counseling, especially when it comes to career and education. So one of my cousins, who was in the Navy, and he was retiring and transitioning to corporate. He reached out to me for guidance, and that's when I realized that wow, this is such an untapped niche area in the country, and it was also a new one in the country because now the government has started helping them get an MBA degree from the IIMs. While in the West, it's a fairly common thing because it's a mandatory training in the armed forces, and a lot of people are inducted in the corporate life, while in India it's still coming up and at infancy, where there's not a lot of acceptance, and also the veterans don't get the right guidance to understand what is required in the corporate. So he found value in it. He called me in his college, that was IIM, and then one thing led to the other. It's such a gratifying work that I do. I volunteer and help the veterans transition to corporate life, help them understand what corporate life is all about, what skills do they bring to the table, and what are the current trends in the industry, and also how they can upskill and reskill themselves, and what they need to learn and unlearn. So I help them, and I am their advocate in the corporate in my own capacity.
Awesome, Samya. I think that's a great service to the nation, right? Because armed forces people in the military, they do a lot of service to the nation, and after their service, they get lost. And then helping them to transition, it's a great service you're trying to do. And how do you go about that? Like, do you also have a corporate connection? Like, once you upskill them, you try to get them jobs, or what is your role exactly there? Like, I know you are mentoring a lot of folks about the current technology, current trends. Is just a coaching aspect, or also do you have some corporate connection where you forward a resume and get them jobs?
I don't have any corporate connection, Nitin. There are a few organizations that have started to do that. But in my own capacity, if I come across something, or if my friends are hiring, or if my friends are in a position where they can influence or take decisions to imbibe this program in their organizations, I do advocate for the veterans in the corporate. But if there are a few people whose profiles are very relevant, I do share in my own capacity to my friends and colleagues in the network.
That's a great service, Samyan. Thanks for that. And also, you have coached multiple startup and small businesses. What's the area you coach them for the startups, small businesses?
So, Nitin, it's majorly on the go-to-market strategy. A lot of my friends or ex-colleagues who are starting afresh and are in their entrepreneurial journey, they feel lost sometimes. And given my expertise and holistic experience in working most of the functions of an organization, right from sales and marketing to business delivery to working in some internal functions, and more like a chief of staff function, I have that visibility how a business is run, what gets impacted, and what needs to be controlled, what needs to be brought in, what are the industry trends. And I read a lot, so that's what I help them understand how they can enhance their go to market strategy, and how they can be better in their operations and control costs, and what are the new technologies that they can bring to the table, and what are the industry best practices that can be applied to a small setup in their 0 to 1 journey. And I help them customize the industry practices for their own needs.
Having that right mentor in place is key for any businesses, because reason being, today we are in an age of information overload, and having a right mentor navigating through the challenges will help them to succeed in a business. But that being said, today's day and age is very fast. It's a fast-paced technology change or an industry change. How do you keep up with all the fast-paced changes to stay relevant and then mentoring industry leaders?
So, Nitin, I always focus on creating an impactful network, and also reading a lot, be it in terms of books, or be it in terms of articles and news. So, I ensure that I read good content, and I filter out content which is not relevant or which is not credit worthy. And at the same time, in my networking style or in my the ventures that I lead, like I started with leading a book club in my local community, and that brought in some very interesting people, interesting perspectives, and then that's some having these micro communities help in bringing that value to your thoughts and strategic value. And again, I call myself a generalist who can learn, unlearn, and cross connect things that and always brings in a fresh perspective, because someone who's just done sales say for 20 years in their career, they would have a very sales mindset, or someone who's just done engineering would have a very technical mindset. So coming from a generalist background, I get that edge over others, that not only do I understand the bigger picture of those simple things, but I can cross connect that, this activity would also be helpful in all the other aspects. And I think my network also finds value in that. And that is how I maintain a balance. But just like I said, I do not have any notifications on my phone. Similarly, I do not stay active on multiple platforms. For me, it's majorly LinkedIn, and I like to focus on certain aspects of my life, and that focus can continue to evolve. Sometimes I'm not even active on LinkedIn, or sometimes my focus is reading. Sometimes my focus is by meeting people and learning new things. So that is number one. And secondly, I have a growth mindset. That is, every year I try to pick up a course that I learn something new. And it could be a well defined course, that could be a certification from either an online platform or in a classroom setting. Also, if it is not that, then I even through my own research and meeting people, I interview people and I figure out what is happening in the industry. Just out of passion, this year I learned about AI, did some certifications that really helped understand how I can help my organization be better. And I also learned about sustainability, which is the new thing, and it is like the buzzword everywhere. But I did a certain online certifications and learned about what exactly it is, how we can help, spoke to a few sustainability professionals. So I like to keep myself updated with the buzzwords. And having said that, it doesn't mean that all the time I'm reading about AI or all the time I'm reading about sustainability, but I should continue to keep myself updated once in a while, because the world is evolving significantly. But as a generalist, one should have that understanding of what it is that is growing up in the industry.
I agree with you on that one. Being a lifelong student is key to success, right? Because that's a lot of people have a misconception. Once they finish their degree, that's where their learning stops and they start working. I think that's the wrong assumption, right? You should be a lifelong student, and that's where that's a key for the success. I personally believe, and thanks for reiterating that. And that being said, you did also mention about AI, right? So could you give some of the challenges organization are facing in adapting AI driven solution and how they overcome them?
Right. So, Nitin, that's an interesting topic. At the moment, number one challenge is having a lack of clear strategy. Right now, we are just trying to, as an industry, just add AI in everything that we are doing. It may or it may not even be required, or it may not even be relevant. So, having that clear strategy is required, and in addition needs a lot of investment. It needs a lot of experimentation for it to work effectively, and a lot of people who want to just have stopgap arrangements, and then we'll release a new feature, we'll be able to ship new features to the industry. But for AI, it takes to really invent and innovate, it needs a lot of research. So people need to understand that for AI to work effectively, that research and time is required, and the kind of urgency might have to be thought through for impactful action driven capabilities. And then having that data quality and accessibility is also an issue. But now, in the last 12 months, it has improved and it continues to improve as people see the kind of requirements that would be there in future, and they're trying to make their data in this format, but we still have a long way to go there. And now the biggest change is skills and talent gap that, in and for an engineering organization, if everyone was working in the old age fashion where when AI wasn't there, and suddenly now they have to learn and understand how their work would be impacted by AI, not only in terms of how they can as an individual be more productive, but also the kind of features that they're working on. What would be those when AI comes into picture? Do we even need certain things or not? That also becomes a huge thing. Having that understanding what AI does is important for everyone, be it an end user or be it someone who's working in obviously developing those features which are even complementary to an AI driven feature. So that is the second last one. Last one being bias, trust, ethical and regulatory concerns, because AI ideally needs to be 95% accurate, like a human intelligence, but at the moment it is not yet there, and people need to understand that there could be inherent biases, especially the data could be biased, or maybe the training might not have been that effective for the models. So it's very important for people to understand that it's not replacing humans, it is complementing humans and making them more productive. And those ethical and regulatory issues need to be taken in the concept. Like, for example, I was asking an AI tool to give me, to create a cartoon animated image of myself. And I just said, a curly haired Indian woman with specs, and it showed me Priyanka Chopra's picture in from one of the movies. It was like, if I didn't know Priyanka Chopra, I would have probably used it. So it's very important for us to validate all the information that we are getting. And this is just 3 months old. So it's imperative for us to understand what AI can or cannot do at the moment. And it is going to evolve every month, if not every a second. So that's one. That's the last.
That's a very interesting insight, Soumya, I brought up, and also the way AI generated Priyanka Chopra's image. Long run, it will have a bigger impact if we don't tackle early on, right? So there have been a lot of bias around that, and thanks for mentioning that. I know you read a lot of things. What keeps you motivated, by the way?
Being grounded and mindfulness gives me that motivation. And of course, there's just so much of excitement. So, having the right mentors, having a good network always keeps me on my toes. And I love to ensure that I am a part of at least one learning, a new learning a year, a major learning. And also at the same time, I am into fitness and I like to run and cycle. So, that gives me even more strength and motivation to continue my journey.
It's awesome, Samir. That's awesome. Yeah, I think fitness was one of the key things which everybody needs to follow, right? People either in the corporate or business take that as a second most important thing, but I think fitness should be the first important thing. Thanks for the advice. And as you mentioned, you've been mentoring a lot of professionals. Could you tell us what's the most rewarding aspect of mentoring people at this point of time?
When someone mentors and coaches without having any expectations, and those people really grow in life. And sometimes, when you're doing it for your juniors in the team, and they bring in newer mindset to the same problems that you had to deal with, that's the most gratifying thing that I've come across.
That's great. So I know you are one of the field you focus is strategy and operation. If somebody new would like to get into the field of strategy and operation, what advice would you give them to break into that field?
I would say to be in strategy and operations, try to understand how an organization works in its entirety, right from product engineering, if it's a tech organization, sales and marketing and delivery. So having that holistic understanding is critical. Having that macro picture and never losing the sight of the business goals is important. And always stay to date with the new industry trends and innovations, and always network and always have the right mentors around you to guide. And even if you reach any heights, because even if you're at the CXO level, even Sachin Tendulkar always had a coach. So one should always have right mentors in their life.
True. I think can't stress enough about mentorship. Right. It's a very key aspect, and also having a right network is also key. So I completely agree with you on that one. Now you've been in this leadership role for a long time. There are a lot of learning lessons you might have encountered. What's the one lesson you think you learned the hard way? How did it shape your career?
Like I mentioned earlier, a leader is a leader because of the people following them. So having the right people centric approach in your leadership is important. Having that emotional connect and emotional quotient is important, and it is going to be more important than ever in the rapidly evolving world, especially with multi-generational workforce coming into picture, with one generations being significantly different from the others. So we still have baby boomers in our workforce along with the Gen Zs who are significantly different from the baby boomers. So it's imperative that we embrace people-centric leadership mindset to be successful.
Samya, what's your vision for future of leadership, especially in the tech-driven world?
So in tech-driven world, especially, there are going to be a lot of evolutions, which would be led by AI and by enhanced productivity. So for a leader, it's imperative that they focus on business model innovation continuously. Things that worked even 5 years ago may not be as relevant as in today's world. So we need to upgrade ourselves. We need to upgrade our business model and processes, and of course, upskill the people. It's real-time insights and decision making through data-driven technologies and tools is going to be the key. And also, it's going to be a world of hyper personalization followed by the democratization of data through by AI. So back in those days when we started our career, there were some seniors, just because by virtue of their being in the industry for so long, they had more access to the information, which could be industry related information, or which could be process related information, or which could be the company specific information. But with AI coming into picture, that information insemination is democratized, and everyone more or less has access to most of the information, and of course not specific to the private organizations. But having said that, seniority these days does not account for leadership. People have to get that extra strategic insights and the bigger focus, along with having those people centered skills to survive or to thrive in a newer organization.
Yeah, I think that's you put it in the right way, right? Earlier, it's just by an experience, people used to give respect, but now having more insight is the major shift in the industry. And also, if you could influence one major shift in the industry, what it be and why?
That Nitin comes close to my heart. That is being more human centric, because especially after COVID, the industry trend has been of burnout and lack of empathy with multiple layoffs happening and round the clock working, especially in the Indian scenario, which are leading to some health epidemics not being talked about, not being researched enough as yet, because we are still building to that epidemic. Having visibility of people's mental health, physical health impacts in the short, medium, and long term is important. Having that EQ is important, and having humanly possible expectations from people. You might have seen people just working themselves to death in Japan, but now it is happening in India as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the areas we all need to focus on to have a major shift. And you did mention about you read a lot of books. So what's the one book or book which had, or a podcast or a resource that had a biggest impact on your personal or professional growth?
Actually, there are multiple such books, but one book that I swear by is Power of Your Subconscious Mind, and it works amazingly well. And I believe that our subconscious mind, the values and beliefs that we, or even the limitations that we carry in our mind, impacts work, our thought process, and our ability to grow as a person, as a professional significantly.
And who's the author, by the way?
Joseph Murphy.
Let's say if you're not in the strategy and operation, what career path?
I would have been into business.
What's the one fun fact about you that most people don't know you want to spill in this podcast?
So, until a few years ago, I used to be extremely adventurous and literally like break a leg. So every extreme adventures, I would do something or the other that, it would end up giving me some leg injuries. But that never came in my way of having those adventures. So I've had some interesting stories of my travel and extreme adventures.
So when you mentioned about extreme, what kind of extreme adventure is this?
It could be cliff jumping, it could be canyoning, it could be caving, skydiving, paragliding, or trekking, solo trekking in the jungles of Himalayas. So could be
That's
any.
very interesting. I did not see that anywhere in your profile. So you're completely different on the other side. It's good to know different Soumya. So basically, you're very adventurous. And how frequently you do that? You still do that?
I try to do it as and when it's possible. Yeah.
What's the one of the most darest thing you've done so far? Or you
I
think
will
more?
say caving.
Okay.
So, caving is rare in the world, and this was in Meghalaya. And it's like pitch dark, and we were a group of 20 people, and we had to sometimes slither, and there was just very limited space. There could be rocks protruding from anywhere, there could be some slithery friends around, but it was quite an interesting one. And sometimes, there could be like hollow spaces at the bottom. So there was this particular space where we had to climb like 6 feet, and then there was just space to keep only 1 foot, and then it was like a 5.5 feet hollow space, and hollowness was just too much that even the torchlights couldn't see how hollow that was. And we had to, in the cave, it was not even like big high. We could just sit with the protruding back, and we had to keep 1 foot on one wall, and we had to put our bombs on another wall, and through our hands we had to move. And just before that, we were all in the mud and muddy water, so it was slippery as well. So if you make one mistake, you're down.
So very interesting, and also it's very scary. Yeah, I think the adrenaline rush, what you get out of it, is awesome. I believe, right?
Yes.
So it's very interesting. So thank you so much for your time, Soumya. It was a very interesting conversation from you, be it on a professional side, being on a mentor side, or being a strategy or operation. I think I personally learned a lot from you. I think definitely our audience also did take away a lot of things. As a closing statement, do you want to say something to our audience or a key takeaway as a part of this podcast?
Definitely, Nitin. So, I would like to recommend everyone to stay abreast with the latest industry trends and read up and never miss a chance to network in the industry. Something, although we've not spoken about in the podcast, but I am a big advocate of establishing a personal brand. So, yes, please work on your personal brand so people know who you are and that image is in alignment with what you intend it to be. Because the decision, if you're an entrepreneur, the decision for you to be onboarded to an organization is in a room where you are not a part of. And that is where your personal brand would matter. For corporate employees, it is something similar. When promotions are discussed, hikes are discussed, relocations are discussed, it is most of the times when employees are not in the room and it is their personal brand because it's not only their mentor but it's all the other leaders of the organization team who would be sharing their inputs, sharing their recommendations of the person and other people, and there the personal brand would make a huge impact. So please work on that personal brand and be happy, mindful and successful.
Thank you, Samya. Thank you so much for your advice on that one. If any of your audience would like to learn more about Samya or get connected to Samya, either it's a business strategy, operation, personal growth, or if even it's an adventure trip, want to take advice from Samya, feel free to reach out to her. Or, I will put her LinkedIn handle as a part of this. And I personally believe you can get a lot from Samya. And Soumya, thanks for your time. I had a wonderful conversation with you today. And thanks for coming to our podcast. Have a wonderful time ahead. Thank you very much, Soumya.
Thank you, Nitin. It was wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care. Bye bye.
you. Bye bye.